It just snowed for 5 minutes and I am pissed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today we are looking back at Wednesday's 9 games and then previewing 4 games on Thursday and talking about some injury news, especially with the news about Victor Oladipo. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed. Let's start with the first game of the night. The Washington Wizards, they went to Orlando and they got spanked by the Orlando Magic, 123-89. Of course, the Wizards were still without Bradley Beal and all the front court guys. Troy Brown, another good game. 18, 11, and 5, 2 steals. Now, Brown was a guy that I thought had pretty good opportunity this season. Starting small forward, perhaps, putting up good numbers, but he was injured to begin the year, and then he was shit after that. Now, with everyone out, he's really stepped it up. Still not starting for God knows what reason, but I worry about where he fits in when those literal 5 players who are going to probably play more than him come back. So while he's a 12-team league guy now, I wouldn't hesitate in dealing him off for any other sort of standard, stable 12-team league player. Yamahimi started, he was pretty poor, 10 points. 10 minutes, 3 fouls, 2 points, while Anzej Pasechniks had 16 and 5 in 35 minutes. Now, Pasechniks, it looks like they're going to convert his two-way to a full-time contract. Of course, Wagner, Hachimura, Bryant, Bertans, these guys are all going to come back and probably make it that he doesn't play every night. But for the short term in deeper leagues, Pasechniks has some value. With Garrison Matthews out, Admiral Schofield, he had to step up. He had opportunities before and done nothing, but 36 minutes, 18 and 6, 62% shooting, that's strong. I don't trust it for a single second, but it's strong. It also helps that Jordan McRae was poor, 9 points in his 21 minutes. He is still worth holding in 12-teamers over a Bonga, over a Gary Payton, over a Schofield. As for the big mitten, he had 4, 4, and 3 with 3 steals. So he is an interesting steal streamer, Payton, in those deeper type formats. While Isaiah Thomas was trash, 7 points in 24 minutes. He's a 12-team drop. And Ish Smith, not surprising that he couldn't keep up his MVP level performances. 9 points for Smith in 25 minutes with 4 assists. Sure, he's a 12-team stream type of guy, but he was never, ever going to be able to continue what he'd been doing, and we saw that here. For the Magic, they did change their starting lineup. Kem Birch came in for Wezawundu, played pretty well, 11 and 9, had 3 steals and a block, actually took some of the backup minutes away from Mo Bamba as well. That's because he's a better player. He's not a 12 or even a 14-team league guy. I think he'll chop and change out of the starting lineup, but I feel like he's going to be in the rotation most nights. Vucevic had 29 and 9 with 2 steals and a block, while Fournier shot really well, 19 points and 5 assists. Markelle Fultz struggled, just the 6 points, but makes do when the shot isn't going down, which it hasn't been going down for a while, but 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 4 steals. Like, that's plenty of value. I still think that he is a 12-team league guy, barely, but I'd still be persisting. Aaron Gordon was poor, 10 and 7 in 25 minutes, while Augustin had 18 points in his 23 minutes. As for Awundu, back down to 19 minutes, and Terence Ross struggled his way to 9 points on 10 shots, unfortunately for him. The next game we take a look at here, we've got the Miami Heat. They spanked the Indiana Pacers on the road. Jimmy Butler talking all manner of shit about TJ Warren after the game. The quotes that Butler was throwing out there were pretty aggressive, to be honest. Some of the stuff that he was saying, I can't believe the players just not get away with it, but they just go out and say this stuff after the game about these other players they're going up against. He was calling TJ Warren soft. Here's the quotes from Butler. So if you have any kids listening and you don't want to hear swearing, you can tell them to mute it now. To me, I think it's tough for him because I can guard him and he can't guard me. This is Butler on Warren. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. But like I said, I think you've just got to watch your mouth in certain situations. There's some shit that you just don't say as a man. He's got to see me the next time because I feel like what he said was truly disrespectful. It's all good because we see him again. I ain't scared of nobody. He's talking about, we're going to fight. This, that. It is what it is to me. I ain't worried about him. He's soft. He's not even in my fucking league, like nowhere near me. If I was their coach, I would never put him on me ever again. It's like, no, put someone else on me because I'm going to tear his ass up
Giggity!
every time we play. He can't do nothing with me. When I say he's trash, I mean that. He's not in my league. I take it as disrespect if you ever put him on me. Now that is a quote from Jim Butler, who went out there and was pretty good. Now, he didn't have to do too much. He took 6 shots. He hit 5 of them, 14, 6, and 7 with 2 steals. He's been very deferential this season. Now, this Heat team, it was a pretty comfortable victory. We still got 30 minutes of Derek Jones Jr., even with Justice Winslow back, 18 and 7 with a Richie Beno.
2 for 2.
But that's with Winslow playing only 16 minutes. He's going to have to play more, but we saw James Johnson and Kelly Olynyk both out of the rotation, so Jones is going to stick in the rotation. But I don't think he's a 12-team league guy. Adebayo had 18 and 9, while Tyler Hero, strong game from him, 19 and 7 in 26 minutes with 4 triples. More, again, of a 16 or 14-team league guy. Same as Dunk Robinson, the Spur, who had 17 points, a surprise 5 assists with 4 triples, a 3-point streamer. Kendrick Nunn, 23 minutes only, 15 points. Drop. Been saying it for a while. This is what we predicted would happen, and it's happening at this point. We just didn't think that Winslow was going to be out for over a month, while the Iron Shoulder had 15 points in his 27 minutes. For the Pacers, 37 minutes is a lot for Domantas Sabonis in a game that's a blowout, and he was questionable heading into it with a knee injury, so hopefully nothing bad comes of that. 27, 14, and 6 on 77% shooting, while Miles Turner had been playing well, but he did not do that here. 9 and 5 with 2 blocks, and Jeremy Lamb had 13 in his 27 minutes. I mentioned Warren got ejected after 23 minutes, scored 3 points as well. I worry about him when Oladipo does return, about how his usage looks. His game is very dependent on usage. Maybe his minutes stay the same, but you could always see Lamb pushing up to the 3 and taking some playing time away. I'm not saying that Warren's a drop. I think that he will become one, though. Oladipo is set to return on the 29th of January. I'll talk more about him later on. Aaron Holiday, 14 points with 5 assists. He has short-term value while Brogdon is out, and Edmund Sumner and Justin Holiday stepped it up with TJ Warren out of this game due to being ejected, as I mentioned. If you're the type of fan who knows their sport, knows their football, knows their basketball so well that you could choose any game and call it, MyBookie is the place for you, because they let you turn all of your sports knowledge into cash in your wallet. With football season, football playoffs, NBA, the start of college basketball season, it's time to get off the sideline and get in on the action with MyBookie. If you're the kind of guy who likes to bet a little to win a lot, try a parlay. For instance, if you like a couple of the big favorites this week, parlays are perfect because they let you bet multiple games together for a much bigger payout. If you're tired of watching games from the couch with nothing to gain, MyBookie wants to get your mind off everything else and back on the game. If you join right now, MyBookie will match your deposit halfway, all the way up to $1,000. That means if you deposit $2,000, you get an extra $1,000 in free money to play with. Just use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA to activate the offer. Once again, the promo code is LOCKEDONNBA to take advantage of MyBookie's generous sign-up offer. MyBookie.ag. So visit MyBookie.ag today. You play, you win, and you get paid. Let us now go on to the next game, the third game of the day. It was an overtime one. It was Toronto and the Charlotte Hornets. The Raptors get the win on the road in the end, 112-110. Now, it was pretty weird, the stuff that Nick Nurse was saying last game about Terence Davis, how he played him only 8 minutes despite Powell and Van Vliet being out, and then saying he was that terrible he should have played him 5 minutes fewer. That was weird to me because I thought Davis had been playing all right. So Nurse's response to that is to go out and start Davis and play him 37 minutes. Now I get why he played the big minutes, because he was playing well, but he was also playing well beforehand. So that makes the 8 minutes that he played the last game absolutely egregious. I don't understand why he did it. His reasoning was off. Again, how do you look at this, right, and say, this guy was so bad that I shouldn't have played him at all, but you know what? Next game, I'm going to play him as much as possible. Where's the logic in that? There's someone, he's obviously lying at some point, but then the lie doesn't make sense as to why you only played him 8 minutes in that game. Like, what happened in that time we went, man, he was so bad, I should not have played him, but my best decision would then be to play him more. There's no logic in it. Now, it obviously worked out because Davis was playing well, and he did play well. 23 and 11 with 5 assists, but lack of logic just confounds me. This is strong from Davis, but when Powell comes back, the opportunity is not going to be there, and I think we're going to get more chopping and changing. We also had Pat McCaw have a big game, so that's how much you should take notice of big games in this one. 13, 5, and 11 for Pat in his 43 minutes. Yes, 43 minutes for Pat McCaw. That's what world we're living in. While the Jedi, Anunoby,
Hello there.
19 and 7 for OG with 3 triples. That's really strong. It came on 62% shooting. I don't trust OG as a long-term 12-team league guy. You know that. And Serge Ibaka is a strong sell high. 23 and 11 for Serge in 39 minutes. And of course, anytime we can play 43 minutes to a 50-year-old Kyle Lowry, we have to do it. 15 and 9. His shooting percentages are suffering, and I am convinced that it's to do with the minutes. 31% shooting here. Hollis Jefferson moved to the bench. The water boy Chris Boucher blocked 2 shots, but he's doing nowhere near enough to be a 12 or even 14-team league guy. As for the Hornets, Miles Bridges, man. 26 points in 35 minutes, 6 triples, 9 rebounds, a steal and a block. These are exactly the type of games outside of the ridiculous shooting that I thought Bridges could do regularly. And you know what? Over the last 5 games or so, he's done it in nearly all of them. Is he worth grabbing? Sure, because if he plays like this, he will get the minutes. The path to minutes is there. Not like Davis, but the path for minutes for Bridges is there. So go and grab him and see what happens. Paul Washington Jr., 12, 12, and 6 with 2 blocks, while Rozier, another strong game. 46 minutes for Rozier is a shit ton as well. 27 with 3 steals and 5 triples. Devontae Graham shot worse than Kyle Lowry, 20% for 11 points, 5 rebounds and 6 assists. We talk about him being an all-star caliber. I don't see him as an all-star caliber player, by the way, but yeah, most improved. He has really cooled off over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and it's not really getting talked about very much because, again, so much of narratives and thoughts of people get really burned in from the first 4 weeks of the season. And then if he had had this start to the season, shooting 25% from multiple games, people go, what is this bloke doing? Get him out of the lineup. Man, he's trash. He still can't shoot. But because he started off shooting well, and then the shit shooting, which marries up to last season, came afterwards, we ignore it as a general NBA populace. It is something that's always worth monitoring when looking at sell highs and buy lows and that sort of thing, is that initial narrative sticks way longer than a random 2-week patch in the middle of December or something along those lines, which is what we're seeing at the moment, I believe, with Devontae Graham. Next game on the docket, we got the Spurs. They blew out the Celtics. A lot of blowouts and a lot of weird games here. 129-114 San Antonio. DeMar DeRozan's hot streak continues. 36 and 4 on 59% shooting. Absolute sell the shit high out of him. While Bryn Forbes, also one of his better games. 15, 3 and 6 with 4 threes. Do not count on Forbes to do this. We also got a good Lonnie Walker and good Maximum Derek game.
Maximum Derek.
19 points in 19 minutes for the drip Lonnie Walker. Again, he just does nothing else. So that's, Colin Sexton with cool hair. That's sort of what Lonnie Walker does, and that's why his fantasy value is limited. Derek White had 15 points with 2 blocks. The minutes still, the 20 minutes is a concern. DeJounte had 10, 7 and 4, and Aldridge 13, 6 and 4. Pretty standard lights from them. Pat Mills dropped way off after his strong performance last game. For the Celtics, Kemba Walker was back from illness and he got ejected, playing only 18 minutes. Marcus Smart only played 25 off the bench, but 12 points with 5 assists is strong enough still for a 12-teamer. Hayward played well, while Enes Kanter, who had been playing solidly, did not. 2 points in 18 minutes, 7 rebounds. Not a must-roster 12-team league player under any circumstance. He's a guy that you could stream in while these guys are injured. He has occasionally good games, but he's not a guy that absolutely is a must-roster player. Tatum had 14 and 6, but as per usual, shot poorly as he seems to do every second game. While Jaylen Brown was okay, 16 and 3, but no assists and 2 steals there. Not just overall, not a good night for the Celtics. They even played Taco Fall in the second quarter, which was pretty weird at the time, and it didn't go all that well when he was in there, to be honest. Next game up, the Rockets against the Atlanta Hawks. Pretty strong performance here from Atlanta. They end up going down 122-115. Jimmy Harden had a 40-point triple-double, 41, 10 and 10. 2 steals and 3 blocks. Now, he shot horribly, 27%. But when you do all these other things, it still puts you right up the top, including going 19 of 23 from the line, 83%. Capella had an absolute monster, Richie Beno.
2 for 2.
A different type of Richie Beno. 22 points, 22 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. 64% shooting and 100% from the line. Big from him. While PJ Tucker, who's been missing in action, had 17 boards with 2 steals. He is not a must-roster player. He can be a steals streamer. He hits threes at an okay rate, but I do not view him as a must-roster player. With no Russell Westbrook, Benny McLemore played 32 minutes and scored 18 points. Austin Rivers played 27 minutes and scored 10, and Eric Gordon had 17 in 30 minutes, and none of them should even be considered for 12-team leagues. While Dan House, his hot start to the season has disappeared. 4 points in 37 minutes. Obviously not a guy that we really care about for fantasy 12-team leagues at this point. For the Hawks, speaking of 40-point triple-doubles, Trae Young, 42, 13, and 10 on equally bad shooting. Well, not equally bad, that's unfair because he was better, 37%. He was also 16 of 18 from the line, while the Baptist John Collins, 17 and 14 with 4 blocks, and Fanta Pants Kevin Huerter, 11, 6, and 4. People ask me, Josh, why do you call him Fanta Pants? Okay, this is the definition. If you didn't hear my definition show in the preseason, he has orange hair. Therefore, he has orange pubes. Fanta is the color of orange. So, he has Fanta in his pants. That's it. Fanta Pants. That's simple as that. Alex Len had a big 14 and 10 double-double in 23 minutes. He's not reliable enough. He's a 14-team league guy, but he's obviously better than Bruno Fernando and Damian Jones. DeAndre Hunter, I'm not sure if he's better than those guys because he's not good. 5 points in 26 minutes is only a 14-team league guy, while Cam Reddish also, if we're going to speak about not good rookies, 7 points in 18 minutes for Reddish. He did start this game, and he looked bad as per usual. Shout out to anyone who knows of the guy Paul Watson who played in this game. Literally, there's a bloke that played 4 minutes for the Hawks called Paul Watson. If you know who he was, hey, leave a comment down below because it's not many people will. All right, let's go on to the next game. The Denver Nuggets and the Dallas Mavericks. The Nuggets on the road get the victory 107-106. Big Chungus Nikola Jokic 33, 6 and 7 with 4 threes. Just continuing his post-December 15 role. While with no Paul Millsap and no Will Barton, the lineups got funky. Now, before I start going through more of these rotations, remember that nonsense 3 or 4 days ago? Michael Porter Jr. is going to be the first man off the bench, play 25 minutes a game. Yeah, cool. He's not good. And he's not going to do that, obviously, because without Will Barton, he didn't even start. And he was just trash. 2 points in 14 minutes for Porter. I still don't think he's necessarily going to be a good player. I worry again about extra tall Colin Sexton. What is he going to do apart from score? And even those big games that he had when he was shooting 90%, you've got to always preach that caution that he's never going to be able to continue that. But when they said, we'll give him a bigger role here, look, that made him an interesting flyer type. He can fly his ass right off your team now. Like, he's still rostered in 31% of leagues. Like, what for? Only 14 minutes, 2 points, and he did not... I reckon 2 points in 14 minutes flatters how good he looked on the court. He wasn't good. He's not good. I worry about what he's ever going to be able to do fantasy-wise to become an elite or even like a top 100 regular type performer. I'm not sure he gets there. But maybe that's being harsh on a rookie who missed so much time. It probably is being harsh. But I just don't know if I see it with him. Malik Beasley went from no minutes to 26. Shout out to you, Dr. Malone. 10, 5, and 2 in those 26, while Gary Harris... He got 3 steals, but that's it. He had 9 points, nothing else. He is just a steals streamer at this point. He's like a Kris Dunn, really. For the Mavericks, Dwight Powell. Maybe it just was the hammy that made him slow at the beginning of the season. 16 and 8, a steal, 2 blocks. Yes, Porzingis is out, but Powell is absolutely a 14-team league guy, and he's probably a 12-team at this point. Well, Doncic, 27, 9, and 10. Maxi Kleber did his thing. 13 and 7 with a 1-1, but Porzingis coming back will kill him. Well, we had Delon Wright replace JJ Barea, who'd replace Kristaps Porzingis. Barea went from starting to out of the rotation. It's amazing how many times that happens. 6 and 6 for Delon, but like Gary Harris, really just a steal streamer. He had the 3 steals here. Timmy Hardaway, he's a point streamer. 15 points in 30 minutes. That's really the value he brings. Again, not a must-roster type of a guy. When I say must-roster, they're guys who, if you have them, they're in your best 10 or 11 players that you just have no problems with. Anyone who's your 12th or 13th best player, just stream the shit out of it, because these are guys that hot streaks, they come in, they go out, and if he's got no ability or no upside to become that guy that's a staple in your best 11 guys, then there's no point holding on to them under every situation. And that's where Hardaway lies. It's where Wright lies. These are guys that you can add, and hey, let's see how it goes. And then when it doesn't work, you move on. If the schedule doesn't make sense, you move on. And who cares? Because you'll find one of 70 other blokes around who can provide similar level value at that area. And that's sort of how I view those guys. All right, on to the next game. The Chicago Bulls, they go down pretty handily to the New Orleans Pelicans, 123-108. The Pelicans actually playing pretty well now, and they're going to get Zion back really soon. They're a chance to sneak into the playoffs in the Western Conference. So before everyone panics about shutdowns and trades and all that sort of shit, they won't make the playoffs this season. The Bulls won't. 31 minutes for Kris Dunn, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, and 5 steals. That is a really, really good game from Dunn. Obviously, the steals are fantastic. That's where he provides value. But when he does these other things, that's added bonus. But he's been dreadful on offense the last few games prior to this one. You look at him more as a steal streamer who provides some assists. That's good enough for a lot of 12-team formats. Like, you'd rather have him over a Delon Wright in most cases for a steal streamer. Probably over a Gary Harris as well, but there are going to be fluctuations in his performance. With Wendell Carter out, they did not start Dan Gafford, which is frustrating. He was shit anyway, but still had the 2 blocks. So if you did add him, those blocks are still handy. But yeah, if you want to move on in a 12-teamer, by all means, it's not like a long-term situation here for Carter. Thad Young did step up though, 18 and 6, 3 threes and 3 steals. We know Young is excellent at the steals, and while he's got an elevated role, he's a 12-teamer. While Zach LaVine had 32, 5 and 6 and 2 steals. Markkanen wasn't that good, 14 on 13 shots with no peripheral stats. While Satoransky fouled out in only 25 minutes, 6 and 4. Shit performance from him. That gave extra minutes for Kobe White, who also didn't do a huge amount, 10 points in his 13 minutes. The Bulls are terrible. For the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram did sprain his pinky, but it's not considered anything serious. Still was unbelievable. 29, 8 and 11 with 2 blocks. And you know I talk about this all the time. If you have a shit shooting night and you still put up numbers, then you're a good player. And that's exactly what he did. 37% shooting, but 11 of 12 from the line. Now, will he be able to coexist with Zion? That's the thing, because his usage is so high. What will they do in terms of the ball in his hand? That's a real concern. So maybe Ingram's a bit of a sell high. JJ Redick putting up numbers while Holiday is out. He has got value, 24 points, 6 triples and 4 assists. And the same you could say for Josh the Hitman Hart, who had 13 and 6 with 3 steals. I'd rather Redick over Hart for the time being, but I think they're both just short-term fixes. Not a great game from Derek Favors, 12 and 9 in 24 minutes. Jackson Hayes played really well, 14 and 12 with 4 blocks. Now, Hayes has struggled recently. This is one of his best performances, probably his best performance all season. So I'm not overly reading into it, but it is encouraging to see him do that. It was also the best performance from Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who had 11, 4 and 6, a really strong line. He was into the rotation because Holiday was out. Lonzo Ball couldn't keep up his streak of 20-point scoring performances, but still, 11, 5 and 7, a steal and a block. Nobody's complaining about that, really, that he should be rostered in all 12-team formats. Pretty sure everyone's well aware of that, though. Hopefully you are. Let's go on to the next game. The New York Knicks were trash once again. They got smacked by the Jazz, 128-104. There was no Julius Randle out for personal reasons. Marcus Morris was out, so they went with Punch Bob, who escaped a suspension after punching someone in the head. He claims it was, I was just trying to block the ball. I don't know how many times you wind up for a clothesline to block a ball. I'd say exactly 0. But then he went out and smacked someone else in the head again, so cool. He had 13, 13, and 6, and maybe he convinced a team that he's good when he's not. Shot poorly, while Frankie Ntilikina had a really strong night in limited minutes, 16, 4, and 3 in 19 minutes, but only a deep league guy. Mitchie Robinson, whoa, it's pretty rough at the moment for Mitch. It's that rough, I'm not even going to play the soundbite. 6 and 4 in 22 minutes. I don't know why they won't play him minutes. He does get fouls, but 2 fouls in 22 minutes is not enough to stop him from playing 30+. That's really disappointing, especially considering Taj Gibson got 2 fouls really early on. I don't like that coaching decision from Mike Miller. I'm still holding Robinson, but that is frustrating. We also got, for God knows what reason, 22 minutes of Wayne Ellington and 22 minutes of Damian Dotson. Alfred Payton struggled. Kevin Knox, literally the worst player in the NBA, 6 points in 29 minutes for him. Just a complete trash game from all of these. RJ Barrett, he's a drop in 12. He's not good. 10 points, 27 minutes. He just struggles in too many areas to be considered a must-roster 12-team league guy. Now onto the Jazz. Bojan Bogdanovic had 35 points last game with literally no other stats. He had 3 rebounds and 3 assists, so you consider that a win in his 20 points. He only played 26 minutes because this game was that much of a whitewash. Gobert had 16 and 16, while the Donovan Mitchell...
He's Don. He's good.
16, 3 and 6 with a steal. Moutier was great, 20 points in 25 minutes, but it's really hard to get excited about any of these performances given the quality of the opposition. We had 24 Jordan Clarkson minutes, 26 Joe Ingles minutes. It's really hard to get a full read on this sort of performance given the lack of fight that was shown by the opposition, being the New York Knicks. All right, so we move now on to the last game of the day, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Golden State Warriors. The Bucks get the win, 107-98, probably a little bit closer than they would have hoped for when they were heading into this game. Giannis still doesn't look quite right with that back injury. They continue to list him probable almost every game. He ended up with 30 and 12 in 32 minutes, and that's still obviously great. 69% from the line.
Giggity.
Not that good, but you've come to expect that from Antetokounmpo at this point, and your team should be well aware of that, or right over the top of the fact that you need to punt free throws when he is on your team, because if it gets better, it's a bonus. If it doesn't, then we're just where we are, and that's sort of how you have to approach having Yanni on your team. 16 and 3 steals for Eric Bledsoe in 29 minutes. Lopez had 12 points with 2 blocks, and Middleton 21, 7 and 6. Good numbers from them. With George Hill out, Paddy Connaughton played 28 minutes. Dante DiVincenzo played 24 minutes. DiVincenzo got his 4 assists. He got his 2 steals. he's one of those guys that if you're looking for assists and steals, he can be that player. He's more of a 14-team league guy, but he's not out of place on a 12-team league. And Wes Matthews did appear to sprain his ankle a couple of times in this game, so that's something to watch. That could push an extra 2 or 3 minutes onto DiVincenzo, which does give him more of that appeal for 12-team formats. For the Warriors, with Damian Lee now converted to a full-time contract, he played 32 minutes, had 15, 4 and 4 with 4 triples. He should be rostered in all 12 leagues. All 12-team leagues. Well, the lubricant Kai Bowman started again, and I don't think that they are as keen to convert him. The words from Steve Kerr saying he wouldn't even be playing if D'Angelo Russell was healthy. They've got no problem with him going back to the G League. So I think when his days run out, which is going to be in a day or so now, that we won't see him. They won't be in a rush to convert him. That helps guys like Alec Burks, who are at risk of getting traded. 19, 5 and 7 for Burks in 26 minutes. Yes, Russell might come back next game, but that's still strong enough to hold Burks. Draymond was horrible in shooting, but 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals and a block. And the Wizard Omari Spellman, 11 and 5 in his 17 minutes. Cauley Stein was subpar, 10 and 11. I've said this plenty of times that he was putting up numbers that were 12-team worthy, but I don't trust him long term. Two of the last 3 games, he's been pretty poor. I think he's more of a fringe 12-team league guy at this stage. While the triangle Eric Pascal got a lot of fouls, 5 fouls in 12 minutes, that limited his playing time, but I don't think he should really be anywhere near a 12-team roster. While Alan Smailagic, I thought he looked pretty good, 10 points in 11 minutes. He's a dynasty stash type of a guy, but there's definite upside with him on a team whose big men are Spellman and Cauley Stein. They're not long-term top. Maybe Spellman's got some long-term value, but Smailagic is an interesting player to have a look at long-term. Maybe he tops out as a 20-minute-a-night guy, but I thought he's been relatively impressive so far. Let's now go on to some injury news. Victor Oladipo. Let's talk Jonathan Isaac first. Again, no surgery required for Isaac, but again, it's looking to me more like he won't play again this season. And as I've said plenty of times, I do think he is a drop. We're talking long-term therapy, recovery, bone bruise, ligament strains. I don't think we see Isaac this season, and if we do, it might be a cameo role towards the end of March. I do not think that he is going to be an impact guy at any point in the fantasy playoffs. Now, as for Victor Oladipo, he has set a return date for the 29th of January. That's very specific. I think when he comes back, you're going to have low minutes up until the All-Star break, and maybe he comes back full steam ahead after the All-Star break. But even then, I still think he'll be sitting out back-to-backs the rest of the season. Should you add Victor Oladipo now? Well, there's numerous questions that you have to ask yourself in the next 3 weeks, or with 3 weeks to go. Where are you in the standings? Top 3 and pretty safely there? Then yes, of course you add him. 8th? 9th, can you afford a 0 for that long? Because by the time he comes back, and it's after the All-Star break where he's actually rolling, you're not even going to be in the playoffs. And the playoffs are starting, so there's no point. It's one of those situations which happens in fantasy all the time, is the teams who are good at the start of the season, then they can take the risks to make themselves better in the playoffs. Whereas if you're fighting for the playoffs, you don't have that luxury. So it's important to be able to look at that, because again, I think Oladipo can be, maybe he gets to top 50 this season. Maybe, I doubt it, but maybe he can get to that level. But the first week, 2 weeks, he might be the 180th best player, and that's not good enough for 12-team leagues. And in those 3 weeks you've waited for him to come back, plus the 2 weeks while he's sub 200 numbers, it's 5 weeks. Can you survive it? Have you got other injuries? Because if you don't have any other injuries, maybe you can deal with 3 weeks of having one injured guy. You've got 2 other guys there. That's a tough decision. There's a lot to look at there. How will he fit in with Malcolm Brogdon, with Tony Warren? How will those guys be impacted? I think they'll lose more. I think guys like Holiday, Warren, Lamb will all lose more than, say, Brogdon and Sabonis, although they will lose a little bit, but they'll all lose more when Oladipo returns. But adding him is not just a no-brainer decision where you go, add him because he was good 2 years ago. I've got to add him. You've got to look at so many factors, because a move like that, and this happened a few years ago, when everyone ran out, they forgot what they were doing, they took their fingers out of their asses, and they went and grabbed Paul George, and he did absolutely nothing, and they cost themselves significantly. And while this is probably not going to be that same situation, it does require nuance, context. All that sort of stuff is important to note here, because sometimes the right move is not making a move. But you've got to at least look at it. Skal Labissiere, he's going to be really reevaluated in 4 weeks with his knee injury. That's looking like it might be one where we don't see him for a couple of months, would be my guess. Maybe 5 to 6 weeks. Regardless, he was only a deeper league guy anyway. Joel Embiid is going to miss Thursday's game with a dislocated finger. I get the feeling we're going to have a little bit more of an absence here from Embiid. I wouldn't be surprised to see 3 or 4 weeks, to be honest. In the games that he's missed, it's sometimes been Prison Mike Scott who's jumped into the lineup. It's been the cock monster Kylo Quinn. Norval Pal sometimes gets in there as well. Regardless, Scott, Pal, O'Quinn, neither of those guys or any of those guys become 12-team league options. Sometimes we get more minutes from Matisse Thybulle, the painter. That's happened a few times. He would be, out of that group of 4 blokes, I think Thybulle would be the most interesting 12-team league player, but no absolute lock. These guys have got to be added type scenarios. And while Anthony Davis was initially ruled out of the upcoming back-to-back for the Lakers over the weekend, now he is flying with the team as he deals with his sacral contusion. I doubt that he plays in those games, but at least it's looking significantly more positive than when the injury actually occurred. Let's go on now to look at DFS. We're looking at FanDuel pricing over there today for Thursday's 4 games. All right, the first game we're looking at here for Thursday is the Cleveland Cavaliers going back to take on the Detroit Pistons. These two battled against each other on Tuesday, with the Pistons coming out 2-point favourites in Cleveland. The Pistons are favoured by 7 here, and the total is 220 points. No Blake Griffin, of course, no Reggie Jackson, no Markieff Morris, lone Luke Kennard for Detroit, while Cleveland's still without Larry Nance and Kevin Porter. At point guard, Derrick Rose is at 6,600. Really like that price for Rose. Usage is up. Minutes are strong. 30-plus most nights. Really good value, I believe, here against Cleveland. While the Padawan Colin Sexton's at 6,100. He scores plenty. He just doesn't do anything else, so that makes his upside really limited, but it also gives him a pretty strong floor. Brandon Knight played well last game, and Dante Exum is going to be out again. He had 24 points Knight last time out in 24 minutes. I'm not sure I really buy that, so I don't think I'd get too excited. While Darius Garland's at 4,700, averaging 26 over the last 5. That's far from a bad option. I think he's probably more of a tournament guy, but I don't dislike him here. At shooting guard, Svi McKay looks at 4,200. No, I reckon we can do better. The Shark, Bruce Brown's at 51. He is an option to do better. He's giving us 27 a night over the last 5 games. Pretty much close to that 5x almost every time out. I like Brown here at that sort of a salary. Tony Snell, Langston Galloway, I don't. Chetty Osman's at 46. No, not interested. And then on to the power forward. Sekou Doumbouya is at 5,700. That's getting pretty high for Sekou. I like what he's doing, but I'm just not sure I can rely upon him at that elevated salary. Kevin Love's at 7,200. We know if he's engaged and the game is close, he will beat that, but we just don't know whether that'll be the case. So he makes an interesting GPP option. The Crucifix Christian Wood's just not playing enough. And then on to the big men. Drummond, 10-9. Now we know he's going to put up big numbers almost every night. Lock us in for 50. Love the matchup again for Drummo. He had 61 on Tuesday, so he should be in line for a big one. Tristan Thompson, we can do better, I think, than spending 6,200 on him. The next game up for the day on Thursday, the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid is out. Matisse Thybulle has been upgraded to probable with that knee issue that he was dealing with. At point guard, Benny Simmons, 8,500. Simmons is rocking it at the moment, averaging 51 over the last 5 games, which at 8,500, that's plenty for me. He does struggle a little bit against Boston, so that gives me an element of pause, but I still think he's worth looking at here. Walker's at 7,100. The matchup's not a good one for Kemba, so I'd probably fade him here. Wanamaker, Trey Burke, no thanks. Joshie Richardson at 5,900. Extra usage should go towards him with Embiid out, and I like that price tag. He's already averaging 31 over the last 5 anyway, and 31 at 5,900. That's a pretty strong number, so I do like him there. Marcus Smart's at 5,000. Probably not. Furkan Korkmaz also not interesting. At small forward, Toby Harris is at 67. As I detailed on the Buy Low podcast earlier today, just nothing is happening for him defensively. But still, the extra usage afforded to him with Embiid out should make him an interesting guy here. Hayward and Jaylen Brown, 6,000 for Gordo, 66 for Jaylen. I'll take Hayward over Brown just because I can save $600. And I think he's in a pretty decent spot here. Ennis and Thybulle, no. At power forward, Horford's at 5,400. Obviously been struggling. He did have 35 points. He's averaged the last 3 times against Boston, it's been 35. Some of that's when he was a member of the Hawks, of course. But at 5,400 with no Embiid, I think that's absolutely defensible. Jason Tatum's at 69.
Giggity.
Hasn't really been quite at that number, only for tournaments, but even then I'm not super into it. Daniel Tice is going to be a fade also. At center, the cock monster, Kylo Quinn. He had 29 points the last time that he started in place of Embiid. At 4,100, that makes him a GPP guy, but there's also been other times when Embiid has been out where he's barely played. So I wouldn't get overly excited there. Enes Kanter at 51 is also someone who I'm not massively into, but his last 3 games against Philadelphia, 32 points. Now, he does match up okay against Embiid. The problem is Embiid's not playing, so we'll see how Kanter goes out there. I'm not super invested in using him here, though, in this one. Next game. The Portland Trailblazers, the Minnesota Timberwolves. We don't know if Karl Anthony Towns is going to play. I would assume he doesn't play, but we don't know that at this point. Of course, Gorgie Dieng is the guy that gets that boost there. At point guard, Jeff Teague.
My name is Jeff.
He's at 5,600, had 30 points in 29 minutes last game. He's an interesting guy because the matchup's a really positive one, and if he plays 30 minutes, he'll beat that number pretty comfortably. I still have an element of doubt of what they're doing with him and Napier, but I don't mind him at 5,600. Lillard's at 87. He should get 40 pretty comfortably, so I like him. Anthony Simons, no thank you. Shabazz Napier at 49, also a pretty risky proposition. For your shooting guards, McCollum's at 6,700. Stuff really isn't happening for him at a good level. At 6,700, though, I think he is in a good spot here, while Wiggins at 7,000 also is struggling at the moment and just does not look the same player. At your small forwards, Kent Bazemore, no. Carmelo Anthony, 6,100. Really good against Toronto when he dropped a 43-burger. Probably not that keen on him here. Keelan Martin, similarly. Jarrett Culver's one we got to look at. 4,900. He's starting. He dropped 37 last game, averaging 33 over his last 5. No reason to think that he's not an option here. I think he's a really good option, in fact. At power forward, Covington's at 6,000. Good cash value. Probably limited upside, but good cash value. And then we go on to the big man. Towns is at 10.6. I wouldn't want to use him here, just coming back from that knee injury, if he even does play. While Hassan Whiteside, just dropping 50s every game pretty much. So at 9,500, that's a really strong cash floor. As for Gorgie Dieng, 5,600, really disappointed last game, but he can easily get you 30. So I think that if Towns is out, we do have to look at Dieng as a relatively solid and strong option. Let's go on now. The last game of the day, the Houston Rockets on a back-to-back going up against the Thunder. Russell Westbrook will return for this game. The Italian cock, Danilo Gallinari.
Hands off my cock.
He is out, as is Nerlens Noel for Oklahoma City. At point guard, Chris Paul, 7,200. Love Paul in this one here against his former team, and no Gallinari. While Westbrook at 8,700, his first trip back to OKC. Had 45 the first time these two teams played. I like that price for Westbrook. He looks pretty good. At shooting guard, Gilgeous-Alexander at 65, probably a bit high. Same with Schroeder at 6,000. I don't completely dislike them, but they're maybe a little bit too high there. Well, Jimmy Harden's at 11,2. Absolutely no worries with Harden. Anything under 12,000 for Harden is generally considered a pretty good price. Terence Ferguson, anything under about $2 to $3 is probably the right price there for him. At small forward, Dan House, 4,100. Just so in case anybody's confused, I am not saying that Terence Ferguson is a good play. That is a joke, saying he's worth $2 instead of $2,000 before anybody gets interested in it. Just to clarify. All right, small forward, Dan House, 4,100. Eric Gordon, 39. Strong nose on both of those guys. Same with Darius Bazley at 36, who probably will start in place of the Italian cock, but didn't go too well for him last game, and I think his upside's pretty limited. For your big men, your power forwards, Tucker had a pretty good game today. Really lots of rebounds. 4,100 though, I don't really feel good about that. Same with Hartenstein. Mike Muscala, similarly. And then onto the big men. Capella at 77, absolutely love it. He's dropping 50 bombs regularly, so I think he is a good play. As is Steve Adams at 71, who's dropping 40 bombs regularly with Noel out as he's pushing into the 35, 36-minute mark. So both of those centers, I think, look pretty good in this matchup. Let's now flip it over. Have a look at some DraftKings plays. Rose and Drummond come out pretty good. Kemba, Siku, I think, looks all right there. Joshie Richardson, Colin Sexton, Bruce Brown, Horford, McCollum, Garland, Brown, Tatum, Jaylen Brown, that is. Whiteside and Lillard also come out looking pretty strong over on DraftKings. Guys, that'll do it for me today. Don't forget, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Leave a comment, tell your friends, give a 5-star rating or review. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Josh Richardson.